Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Doctors on Social Media podcast. We call ourselves SoMe Docs for short. Here in this show, we bring you today's most interesting content and we dissect it together. SoMe Docs is looking to create unique buzz and excitement within the field of healthcare and to showcase the movers and shakers who are making a difference today. Our episodes are available in both visual recordings and audio format, so you can soak us up through whichever medium fits best. Don't forget to give us a shout out online or share what you love. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Social Dissections. Social Dissections is where we take a standout social media post and we dissect it together. And today we are welcoming Dr. Firas Al Shakarchi. And I said that really fast, and he is apparently known as Dr. Shak, which I am going to be referring to you as from now on. So welcome. And
Works with me.
please, could you please introduce yourself and get your, say your name correctly for us?
No, you said it perfect. Firas Al Shakarchi. I'm Middle Eastern, which is where that name comes from. And Dr. Shak, I think a lot of people do stumble on Al Shakarchi, especially my patients and stuff. So I just started referring to myself as Dr. Shak and kind of stuck. And my page refers to myself, I refer to myself on my page as Dr. Shak, and that's kind of just what it is now. I don't know.
I love it. I'm going to refer to you from now on as Dr. Shak.
Go for it.
That is awesome. And you mentioned something, I didn't hear you correctly. Did you say because I look like him? Or were you making a joke of that sort?
No, I sometimes make the joke. People go like, Shaq, like Shaquille O'Neal. And I go, yeah, we're related or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think I look anything like Shaquille O'Neal.
Right. Well, maybe your basketball skills are similar.
Maybe. Yeah, that's what I tell myself.
Just say they are. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
We'll just say they are. Did you tell us what kind of doctor that you are?
So I'm a neurologist. Just became board certified this year. Woo, super exciting. But I'm currently doing a stroke or vascular neurology fellowship in Boston. Almost done. As soon as I finish, I'm moving to the Midwest to pursue a more attending role there.
Amazing, and best of luck to you on that one.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's now focus on what we're gathered here to do, which is to dissect your reel. So without further ado, here we go.
If I can refer you to my cinematic page, I have I have 3 pages, which is way too much. But my cinematic one, which is scripted by Shaq, which is less comedy. I don't know if you saw that at all.
I did see it.
It's the one where I just do a lot of, so I thought I'd point that out in case you haven't seen that one. That's the one where I like focus on the shot and do all that other stuff. Yeah.
Dr. Shak, I research my subjects before we come on these podcasts. So I saw.
I'm sure. I can see that. I can see that.
But I had to, first of all, I had to choose this one. I had to choose one, and this was the one that the team chose and identified. Okay. So I sort of had to do that one. But again, I think because you had 3 accounts, I couldn't necessarily find this right away when you scheduled this. And so I landed on that other one. And then I found one that I could not stop laughing about. But we're going to go back to that one in a second. Let's watch this one right here.
Okay, so wait, aren't you a doctor? Huh? Are you a doctor or not?
Yeah.
Okay, this patient's in VFib. We need someone to run the code.
We're sure it's not a code stroke?
No, it's not a code stroke. He's in VFib.
Okay, maybe we can give a TPA? No.
Something, we're losing him.
Sir, could you put up your arms like this, like you're holding a tray?
The hell is wrong with you? He's unconscious.
Yeah, I don't know. MRI?
Okay.
All right.
I feel like you're cringing a little bit.
I'm not.
Okay, good. Because that reel is so clever. And again, I think that people watching it clearly need to have a sense of humor to watch it. There's really nothing offensive about it. It's so hilarious. I want to know, how did the reel actually come to fruition?
So I write a lot. Like if you take out my phone anytime and go through, I have a whole thing of just medical skits, and I have a separate one of just random skits and one of like philosophical skits, and it's just I just have ideas and I put them down on paper. or in this case, an application on my phone. But I think I tend to be recently, as I've transitioned to more of a, I just recently started just a page that's purely medical. And as I've transitioned to that, I've become a lot more like cognizant of the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis in the hospital. And I've tried to kind of like just extract things in the from the past of things that people have brought up and tried to put them on paper. And one of those things is the fear of running a code blue in the situation where neurologists rarely do that, you know, and I think a lot of people, although we're BLS and ACLS trained and everything, the ones who run it are the internists, the critical care, whatever, and the people who are seeing that all the time. We're doing the stroke codes all the time. And in the same way where you tell an internist, come run this stroke code, and they'd be like, I don't know how comfortable I am doing that, even though they've been ACLS trained and they technically know the stuff. I think I was in a situation once where we walked to a code blue and we were with the team and we were kind of like, we were near the code blue. We were like, who's running this? How are we gonna do? Okay, how, like we were kind of talking to each other about the fear of, okay, maybe we're gonna have to do this and this is real, and we're the only doctors there. Thankfully we got there. There were other people there, and this was during residency, and they were like, okay, they got this, they can run it. But it's that recollection of that memory of me thinking, you know, how does it feel like to be a neurologist who hasn't run that many code blues and is in a situation like that where they have to do it and feel and look comfortable and confident doing it. We could probably do it, but it's not in the second nature that maybe a lot of other internists or physicians do it who are constantly seeing it. And that's kind of where that came into play, where it's like, if this was to happen, how would a neurologist do it? And maybe they'd confuse the two codes, the code blue and the code stroke. And I think it's a lot of these little things that I've recently just become aware of that maybe were things that I throw away in the past and just like a throwaway line or something that someone would say, but now I'm always thinking about these things.
Well, I think what makes it extra funny is that you use some of the techniques that test, you know, patients on a neurological basis, and you're bringing that to the code. I'm only saying it out loud because some people that are following may not have that medical background and maybe don't understand why it's funny. So that is hilarious to think about. The next question was actually going to be about what I thought was actually a new word, which is code stroke that you used during that reel. I thought you made it up, and I actually thought it was funny. What exactly? I actually have led many codes when I was an internist, when I was a practicing internist. But what exactly is a code stroke?
So it also depends on where you're from. So there's some places that call it a brain attack. I've heard of that. I've heard some places call it a stroke code or a code stroke, but it's the equivalent of an emergent situation where someone would show up for someone who is thought to be having a stroke and is most of the time, if it's called correctly, is within the acute window to receive acute intervention. And so it's a rapid response. Everyone shows up. There typically is a neurologist who shows up there, and I think it differs from place to place, whether it's a primary stroke center, comprehensive, you know, something like that. So it's, you know, put everything down, run to this place. There's someone who's possibly having a stroke who may need, you know, TPA, TNK, you know, a clot, for people who don't know, a clot busting medication that dissolves the clot in the brain. Or may need some sort of procedure, whether it's thrombectomy or needs to be admitted to the ICU for some reason. So it's something that just kind of, it's an emergent code in the hospital, somewhat similar to a code blue, but in this case, it's a stroke situation.
Yeah, I just never heard it referring to, but now that you say that, it brings me back to my undergrad days. I was at UCLA and I actually participated in a stroke team that did exactly that. And back then I was an undergrad, so I didn't have, you know, that medical capability. But we literally sat watch in the emergency department because that was still something that was relatively new. We sat watch because we needed to sort of identify potential patients that would benefit from TPA. So I'm glad that it's sort of becoming more mainstream now, and there's actually a term for it that I actually didn't hear about and thought that you were actually joking when you said it. So
yeah, it's a true thing, a real thing.
Right. All right. Another question based on that reel. So do patients find you online and then have themselves a laugh And do you find that it makes them actually even more comfortable seeing you?
So it's happened maybe a handful of times where a patient has recognized me from something online. It's not something that happens that often. And when it does happen, I do feel like they refer to the videos and they laugh or they say something and maybe it does. And maybe although the videos that I make aren't the most what's the word? They're skits and they're made mostly in a comedic sense and mostly in the way that other physicians may relate to more so than patients. So they're not the most educational videos, but I think maybe that does make them feel a little bit more confident, like comfortable around me, specifically because of the fact that it maybe brings me down to earth a little bit more, and maybe it's comedic, it's funny, it's not necessarily someone just sitting there who is a doctor who portrays themselves as a doctor in this medical sense where it's where you talk about medical jargon, you're spewing things out that people don't relate to, and it's just I think that divide is maybe blurred a little bit. That line between patient and physician is blurred a little bit because I'm doing things that maybe more people on a day-to-day basis do, or even just people who aren't necessarily physicians do. So maybe I think so. I haven't really given that much thought, but the fact that you bring it up, I think I see that now in retrospect.
Yeah, I do personally, I do think so. I know that, a lot of the general public thinks of doctors as stiff.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's the traditional mindset that people have about doctors. I think that you doing this really opens it up to, us having a humanity and being able to laugh. I actually do think that, and again, this was going to be asking you, so I'm going to ask you as well, but personally speaking, I so appreciate humor. And I actually do think that even humorous reels that are created in jest can stir up discussions that are serious. Um,
yeah.
so I actually do appreciate these reels, and humorous reels oftentimes are intelligently done. Like this, again, it's silly, it's funny, but it is very tastefully and intelligently done, in my opinion. Again, maybe people won't agree, but I think for the most
I
part,
appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. It's so great. And I'm going to show yet another reel soon, which literally made me laugh. So the last question about this particular reel is that the reel, and we touched on this a little bit, but the reel is clearly a joke. Do you
Mm.
ever worry that people following may take you seriously?
I do. And sometimes when I do these when I film them or write them, I tend to sometimes consult other people and be like, what do you think? Do you think I'm crossing the line? And there have been things that I've enjoyed writing and wanted to film because I think of it in a comedic light. And people say, someone might not take that very well. And I find I consider this somewhat of an art form. And that might be a pretentious thing of me to say, but I think the way I write and the things that I think of and the way I portray it is somewhat of an art form. And it kind of sucks in a way to limit yourself in that perspective because art is supposed to be subjective and it's supposed to be interpreted in different ways. And limiting myself because of the opinions of others does somewhat, it sucks, but at the same time, I am aware of the fact that I do work in healthcare and this could affect the way that I'm viewed at as a physician and might affect things like that. So I think I tread a little bit more lightly than I would if I wasn't in healthcare. So some things can be taken seriously. I try to make it clear that it isn't serious, that it's a joke, that it's an over exaggeration of situations that may actually come up, on a day-to-day basis or rarely even. Um, but yeah, to answer, long story short, to answer your question, I think sometimes people can view it differently. And I think the internet is that. That's the internet. You're gonna have some people posting lovely things and dog videos that are super cute, and someone might say, you're killing your dog, you're doing something horrible to it. There's always gonna be someone on the other side of the fence, I think.
I can so relate to that. I think that it really takes courage to put yourself out there as a physician and a healthcare professional. And I also always think twice before I post. And I used to much more, when I was employed, because you're also representing your employer. But I think that it takes voices like yours, right, to make an impact because you're getting over that fear and you're able to sort of make commentaries through humor and through social media. So I definitely thank you for that. So
Thanks.
there was, of course, there was a comment underneath the reel. I'm trying to read the name, OP Dr. Batuhan Banner, something of that sort,
Okay.
who says, as an orthopedic surgeon, did you give Ancef? Is there any joint implant she have? Yes, definitely you should give antibiotics. You don't want to see a prosthesis infection. Believe me, I've seen a lot. So again, it's so nice to see, our colleagues step in and kind of throw their own jokes in there. And
Yeah.
it's almost like it's almost self-deprecating in a way. And I think self-deprecation is such a strength for people because you can make fun of yourself while you could still be a confident person,
Yeah.
and still be self-deprecating. What do you think of that?
I think for sure. And for one, I want to say to the people who leave me these comments, they're great because they're also a source of inspiration sometimes for a skit. And sometimes I read something like, that's a great idea. Maybe I should do something about that. Two is a lot of the skits that I make, even about neurology, are self-deprecating. Like that in itself is the skit is neurologists don't know how to run codes, I just recently did one where it was about like stupid or not stupid, just like useless recommendations where neurology, we always get consulted for altered mental status and we say things like treat underlying infectious and metabolic causes. Like, yeah, like they know to do that. Why are we recommending something? It's not like you just help them and a light bulb just flash over their head. So I think the self-deprecation, it's in a way also it helps us be aware of the things that we're doing that maybe aren't necessarily the best things at the same time. So like typing up treat underlying infectious metabolic and toxic causes or altermentation, why do I say that? We say it because we might not have anything else to say, or maybe because it's just something that's been ingrained in us and drilled into us. And I think it's a fun thing that we're aware of the the trends that happen in medicine within our own specialties and the things that maybe we do because we've been taught to do them, but aren't necessarily the best thing to do all the time. And I think it also, because we're cognizant of it and because we're aware of these things, it can also help us grow and maybe start shifting away from these things rather than just thinking that they're the right thing. And making fun of those things is maybe a step toward in that direction in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And again, I think that posting online and sharing our wisdom and communicating with colleagues that maybe are in a different geographical location and coming up with ideas. Yeah, it makes us reassess who we are, what we do, if things are ridiculous, if things are there for a good reason, and maybe if things need change. So I'm all for this. I'm all for doing it seriously, doing it humorously, etc. So that's great. I'm very excited because we usually just dissect one reel. The reason we're actually doing two reels is, as I mentioned before, that you had three accounts and I didn't realize that. And so I actually identified a different reel thinking I'd dissect that. I'm going to show that now. It's not medical related, but it made me laugh out loud. It was so, so good. So here we are. Let's see that.
Okay, we'll see.
All right. Oh, let me close that up.
Yes.
If you're listening to this in a podcast, you are absolutely missing out and you need to click into our actual footage, right, into doctorsonsocialmedia.com and find the series section and find this episode and watch this because it is freaking funny. So I literally laughed out loud watching this. And for those still listening on a podcast, I'm going to quickly just describe it. You can't see it since it's a reel that doesn't have words, but basically Dr. Shak gets water on his phone and cringes as the phone basically goes haywire and starts tapping on its own. And the phone starts sending out messages starting with, "Hey, stinky face, and the world would be a better place without you." And then it gets even more extreme, and it basically writes extreme messages on peaceful content, and it shares "I hate dogs." And like, you're watching Dr. Shak look at this with like emotional distress and horror, sweating bullets, shaking his head in frightful, like, dismay. And I mean, where in the world does your comedic talent come from? That's what I want to know. I mean, the range of emotions you experience on screen is like Oscar worthy.
Thank you. Great compliment. I never actually thought I had crazy comedic talents or anything. I mean, this whole thing initially stemmed, or me creating videos in the first place, started during the whole COVID thing. And I think that's what started it for a lot of people. I think, they started using TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. And initially, it was just me showcasing me, my personality, who I am. And I was just talking on the camera. And I did that on TikTok, and not much happened from it. I started watching people post skits and that, and eventually thought, I love acting. I've always wanted to act. I've always wanted to write things and then see what they look like on screen. Why not give it a shot? And initially, because I think of the whole like isolation, everyone staying at home all the time and stuff, it gave me a lot of time to write. It gave me I started becoming super aware of the things that were happening in my life, that I'm sitting there at home and I get water on my phone and it gets annoying, and all that, like, you're just alone with yourself half the time. And so the things that you just throw away before, again, like in the same sense as the medical field, start becoming super obvious and they just stand out, and these little annoyances maybe are made a lot bigger. And so using that as the crux, or like the foundation, sorry, of this writing, is basically what people started relating to it and saying, "Oh my God, I hate that my phone does this," or a lot of this, whatever it may be. It was just trying to be relatable. And then I realized that trying to be relatable when you're serious about it is kind of depressing. And so trying to make it lighthearted is the thing that caught people's attention more so than not. I don't think I rarely carried myself as someone who thought they were funny. I wasn't like, yeah, I'm the class clown or anything like that, but it was just a side effect of me trying to make content, trying to act, and trying to find ways to make people actually want to pay attention to the things that I'm doing. Um, yeah, and making it related, like a day-to-day thing, relatable.
It's really good. It really is. And has something like this ever happened to you, or something like equally embarrassing or frustrating?
Something like this happened to me. I mean, the phone getting wet happening to me, and me not being able to do something. When I think the one time that it's happened that was quite embarrassing is music started playing randomly while we were. I had my phone. This is actually fun. Sorry. As I had my phone in my pocket. I have hyperhidrosis. My hands sweat, and I was wearing gloves. And then I went to watch. I was trying to get the gloves on. I struggled getting the gloves on. I washed my hands. It was a whole thing. My phone was in my pocket. We were talking to a patient, and my phone started playing music. And I don't know why. It just started playing music that I was playing before. So I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let me take it out and try to pause it." And it wouldn't let me pause. And I had water on my fingers, and I'm just sitting there, standing there in front of the patient, blasting music on my phone, and it was heavy metal. So it wasn't even like nice serene music. It was like screamo and guitars, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And so that's probably something that's funny that's happened. It wasn't what inspired the video, but I mean, something like this has happened before.
I was on mute laughing while you were talking. All right. Do
It's all
you
good.
make patients laugh also in real life?
I, I I try to sometimes. Um, Actually, just today, it's kind of dad jokey, and it's maybe a little bit. I don't think it's inappropriate, maybe, but so for I had like the other day, I had a patient who was not the other day, it's been a minute, but a patient who had a stroke who was supposed to go on a cruise, and they missed the cruise, or they brought them to the hospital. They were about to board the ship. They didn't get on the ship, and the patient asked me, he's like, "Do you think I'm going to make the cruise?" And I just looked at him and I just paused and I said, "I'm sorry, sir, that ship has sailed." And he cracked up, and I cracked, and the people laughed. But like I sometimes do it, I guess. Had a patient the other day who there was a concern for press, which is with a syndrome that basically happens in the brain, but we weren't concerned for press. So one of the things that I said was, I think we have more pressing things at hand right now. And so it's like I sometimes do things like that when I don't think about it. It kind of just comes out, and it feels like a dad joke, and people roll their eyes at me, and I guess sometimes it makes people laugh. But I don't know. I don't know if I consciously do it, or it just kind of comes out sometimes.
Right, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
you use the hashtags skit and comedy in your captions. So I'm wondering if you're interested in doing stand-up or other types of comedy, if that were to come up
Vocal circle.
in the universe.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So I've acted before, and I've done like plays and theater and TV and stuff, and I've really loved the idea. I like being in front of the camera, I like being in front of people. I enjoy it. Not from like this, oh, I want to, I want to be the center of attention kind of thing. I just like performing. And if the opportunity comes up, I think I would have to be very comfortable and confident with whatever it is that I write. I think I like the idea of improv, but as someone who hasn't done stand-up comedy or before, I think I'd have to be quite prepared for it, and I'd have to be happy, and I'd have to show it to a few people and make sure that I get the laughs before I go up. Because at the same time, even though I am a relatively confident person, I'm also I think I'm good at taking constructive criticism. I think that's good as well. But I also don't want to embarrass myself. And I'd have to be super confident and comfortable with what I write before I do that. But if that does happen, if the opportunity arises and someone comes up to me and says, "This is something we're willing to let you do," then I'd probably sit down and try to write something and try to come up with something. And yeah,
Amazing.
I'm open to the idea.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, I hope we see you in another whatever comes up. That's comedic.
We'll see. I think I'm leaving all doors open right now.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good answer. So we have a student section coming up soon with a speaker series focusing on optimizing the application and interview process to both med school and residency. Do students, in your opinion, need to worry about the reels that they make?
To a point. So I interview residents and fellows, and I've been a part of the interview process where I don't necessarily take a deep dive into these people's online presence. I know some people do, and I think maybe the most important part of that is not saying something extremely controversial. Like little things are fine, I think, and like if I started posting, I don't know, something like, I don't even want to say it because I think it might be too extreme. But there are things that you can post about, like I hate all animals and everything sucks and I want the world to blow up. Like there's obviously extremes that we don't want to go by, because I think that somewhat dictates or gives people an impression of your character, which may affect the way that they perceive you on a personal level or even on a professional level. I think this. I think if something is an art form, I would hate to keep people from expressing themselves in an artistic way. I think art is subjective. I think no matter what you do, there are going to be people who are going to hate it. There are going to be people who are love it. There's going to be people on, two different sides of the spectrum. That said, I wouldn't limit art. I think it's very easy to defend art and say this is a form of expression. Now, there's also ways that people can stretch that definition and start posting really, horrible things and say this is art. And I think that then becomes, subject to interpretation, and that conversation that arises from that is going to have to be on a case by case basis. That said, I've seen people change their names on social media before the application process, go private while they were public, have a social presence, and that takes them away from it. They take their social presence away because of residency applications or whatever it may be. Here's my thing. I think before we are doctors, we're human. And being human entails multiple different things. Okay. We are physicians, but being physicians and being healers is only a part of who we are. And the reality of it, that the person you're bringing to the hospital isn't just the healing part, it's the whole thing. It's everything that encompasses who you are. And part of that is going to exist outside of the hospital too, right? And people can be like, they have the right to be aware of who you are, and they have the right to be aware of the things that you bring to the table. I think shying away from it is an unfortunate reality that we are a part of now. People shy away from it because they think they're expected to show a certain light or color in front of the faces of other people. I personally, myself, think shine bright, do the things that you do, be yourself, put that out there, and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If I like that about you, then and you're meant to be at this hospital, then fantastic, or that hospital, wherever it is. But if you're trying to go somewhere and you're scared of the way that they're going to perceive your personality or the things that you enjoy or the things that make you you, then maybe that place isn't the right place for you. And I know a lot of people will think differently, but I think you'll go to the place that's meant to choose you, the place that will make the most sense for you. And if they enjoy who you are as a person, then that's great.
Great
I
answer.
kind of
No,
went
that was a great answer. It was basically saying, be you, be cautious because you're a professional, but be you nonetheless. So that's just the summation. And I really appreciate that. That's honest and that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now we get to the point in the podcast that's called Shout Out Wheel. It's a little bit like a game show. It just takes a few seconds / a minute. So I get to be sharing the screen and to go to our directory. It's filled with doctors of all kinds, and I'm going to open the filters up and have you choose, like in a game show. We start off with a specialty. Choose a specialty, please.
Is it my a random
No,
specialty?
it's anybody's specialty. We're
Any
going to
specialty?
narrow it down to just one person and we're going to shout them out, one or two people.
Emergency medicine.
Okay, love it. See, that's how unique you are and out of the box, that I was hovering over neurology. I had a feeling, but you said any, and then you went to me. Okay, I love that. You did not just focus on your own specialty. All right, now you get to choose one of these other filters on our directory, which is practice type, outside exam rooms, or on social media.
Let's do on social media.
And which ones? Which social media platforms?
Let's do YouTube.
Okay, YouTube. So we've now narrowed it down to people that fit into the emergency medicine category, and our YouTubers are on YouTube. Now further niche it down by picking a category under either the practice type, outside exam room, either of those.
Let's do coach.
Okay, a coach. So we have an emergency room physician who is also a coach and who also has presence on YouTube. And we're going to shout out Dr. Ashley Saucier. And Dr. Saucier is also a network member, so I know her. And she does great work. And I interviewed her actually. I just don't remember in what capacity. So awesome. She's going to be tagged in this episode and people can definitely find out about her. So thank you for that. Just reading her tagline: pediatric EM physician, boy mom, educator, author, advocate, explorer, and expert manager of chaos. Love it.
Yeah.
So for that shout out. Yeah, exactly. Unique docs. All right. We're coming to the end of the episode. Do Dr. Shak and I a favor. If you've enjoyed this recording, go to social media, tell everyone how wonderful and how funny Dr. Shak is and how much he is deserving of an Oscar, and that you heard this really great episode on SoMe Docs, and tell them to listen too. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Honestly, it means a lot.
Sure. And bye-bye to everyone listening.
Bye-bye.